Don Bosco kept the school vacation periods to a minimum because he called it the devil's vintage. He deplored the havoc wrought by the summer break among the boys of his oratory. In this episode, I'll tell you the story of a well-meaning student who went off the deep end after a short vacation from the oratory, and then I'll relate Don Bosco's advice on how to avoid the sinful pitfalls of summer vacation.
The Miracles and Prophecies of St. John Bosco, a project of America Needs Fatima. I'm your host, Matthew Miller. Subscribe for new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Oh, wow. It's pretty windy out here. During a spiritual retreat for his Salesian clerics and priests, Don Bosco said, "Let me tell you of a recent experience. A fine young man asked to go home for a visit. I want to draw my brother to the congregation," he said, "and take my sister to the convent of Mornez, and thus place my whole family under the protection of Mary Help of Christians." Knowing this lad's inconstancy, I tried to dissuade him, but he went anyway. Waiting for him to return was useless. Then I met an acquaintance of his who told me that this young man was having a wild time with no thought of returning. I asked his acquaintance to remember me to him and give him a message. Shortly afterward, I received a letter, which I still have, telling me, "From what I was led to believe at the oratory, I thought that the world had only bad people. Now I know that things are very different. There are good people everywhere. And I realize that I too can be a good Christian here and help my parents. And I think it's best to stay here and not return to the oratory." I was sorry for that dear lad, because he was one of our finest. At times, I recall I held him up as a model to others, saying, "Do as he does if you really want to succeed." That letter of his to me was quite unkind, for he had not a word of thanks or recognition for the years of benefits. He harshly broke away from the oratory without saying goodbye to anybody. As it turned out, my concern for him was well grounded. A short time ago, I chanced upon him. He tried to dodge me, but I cornered him and managed to talk to him. When I was through, he frankly told me, "Well, I see things altogether differently now. The days of kissing priests' hands are over for me." At that time, it was the custom in Italy for men to kneel on the left knee and kiss the priest's consecrated hand in greeting. Persisting, I asked him if he had at least performed his Easter duty. The answer was no. Could he live at ease with himself, I asked, or was he being bothered by remorse? With an ugly look, he cut all talk short, saying, "Bah, we no longer understand each other, so let's go our separate ways." He resisted my efforts to detain him and walked away. That friend of his told me later that for some days he seemed quite upset and remarked, "I curse the day I met Don Bosco." And why? Because I had stirred the worst of personal struggles in him by contrasting the peace that had been his at the oratory with his current despair. I've been told that in order to shrug off those guilty feelings, he had to resort to blasphemy, drink, and wild living. That's the story of one of my finest boys who went home to win over his family. Now you know how he ended. He just had to go home and wouldn't listen to his superiors. Now I'd like to give you Don Bosco's advice on how to avoid the sinful pitfalls of summer vacation. But first, if you're in need of spiritual help, you can enroll in our Saturday Mass intentions for the promoters of St. John Bosco by clicking on the link in the description below or on the Mass logo at the end of the video. All of these saint stories are ad-free, which is rare on YouTube. However, my dog and I still need to eat. So please become a promoter of St. John Bosco and help me spread his message free of filthy YouTube ads. For those that already do, I can't thank you enough. God reward you. Before vacation time, Don Bosco told his oratory boys, "It's time that I gave some advice to help keep you in God's reverential fear during this dangerous period. I am often asked, why is it that some boys, maybe most boys, are so good, obedient, and careful to avoid sin during the school year? Yet, during a brief vacation, they lose all they have acquired by great effort, not only becoming dissipated and disrespectful to their parents, but often committing truly ugly sins and making it a habit. I can readily answer that. A bird does enjoy freedom outside the cage, it's true, but the hawk may also swoop upon it when least expected and gobble it down. You are like little birds. Once you leave, the devil is at the gate just waiting to trip you up. Incentives to evil may be companions who are sometimes as corrupt and wicked as you can ever find. You encounter occasions of sin and scandal. Like it or not, you hear cursing and foolish, sinful, and immoral talk. At one time, it may be a modest dress. At another, some dealings with persons of the opposite sex. Secondly, at home, you have fewer means to keep you in God's grace. Here you may receive Holy Communion, visit the Blessed Sacrament, attend daily Mass, confess your sins readily, and pray together in the morning and in the evening. All of these are high-powered means to keep you in God's grace, but it's not so easy at home. Many of you will immediately give up most of these practices. Therefore, it's obvious that you will more easily fall into sin. What's so hard about saying your morning and evening prayers? So say them, and say them properly, all of you. I also feel that you can all attend daily Mass, and better still, even serve Mass. Then who is going to stop you from a little morning meditation, some spiritual reading, and a visit to the Blessed Sacrament during the day? Often read that little book of vacation tips which you were given. Read it every day, meditate on it, and do all it says. Keep your good habit of going to confession every week or every 10 or 15 days. Do this, and I don't think your vacation can harm you. One more recommendation, and one that's very important. Keep recollected. Stay home gladly with your parents. Don't try to go everywhere and see everything and to attend worldly attractions. Keeping recollected means keeping away from persons, places, and things which can lead you into sin. By recollection, I don't mean that you have to spend your whole day huddled in the corner by the fireplace. I mean, keep away from certain people. Regretfully, many of you have friends at home with whom you used to carry on talk that was far from proper. If you hang around with these friends again, you will be lost miserably. Just walk away, avoid him, and leave him alone. That would be discourtesy, you say? No. He's the one who is discourteous for having said something that's offensive to the Catholic religion. If he says, "Oh, you hypocrite, you faker," it's the other way around. He is the faker, he the hypocrite. To call oneself a Christian and not behave like one is hypocrisy. One either doesn't claim to be a Christian or he abides by Christian rules. Staying recollected also means keeping away from places that can be dangerous, such as parties, dances, shows, and fairs. It's just about impossible to attend these worldly amusements without offending some Christian virtue. In these gatherings, you hear blasphemies, curses, and obscenities that stir up evil thoughts. You'll also see immodesty in dress. Take my word for it, serious dangers abound. Some lads go home, hear a friend say something indecent, dressing it up in pretty words, and they smile. If not this time, the next time they'll also join in this impure talk. It was that first smile which was an act of surrender to the enemy. Some lads get their hands on a bad book and begin by looking at the cover and scanning the first few lines. The next day they read a page, and the following day they take interest and read the whole book, going through many hours of the night. Come morning, they sleep long past their rising time, and so can no longer attend daily Mass. Drop me a note 2 weeks from now. Will you do that? I recall that last year I listed some 40 boys who gave me little reason to hope they would persevere in virtue. Write to me twice a month, I told them, and tell me what you're doing. In turn, I'll advise you and help you to keep your resolutions. Incredibly, not a single one of the 40 boys wrote to me. On their return, I asked them why they had not written as they had promised. Things didn't go too well with us. We were afraid, they replied. Afraid? Can't you see this was a deceit of the devil? He delights in your silence, in your reluctance to do what's necessary to conquer evil and protect yourselves against it. He seals your lips with an overdose of shame. Tell your parents that Don Bosco sends his greetings and will remember them in Holy Mass and asks their prayers for him. Tell your pastor the same and give him my regards. For my part, I shall always remember you, my dear sons, in my Mass, so that we may meet once again under this beloved roof. Have a happy vacation. Thank you for watching. God bless you, and Our Lady keep you.